Well, good afternoon, and welcome to Taking Steps to Address the Impact of Falls in Iowa. This is part 4, and we've had 4 other presentations that have been wonderful, so I think you will enjoy what we've got in store for you today. You can access the archived recordings that are available online at the Public Health Association Fall Prevention site, and I don't know if that's on the slide, but it would be iowapha.org/fall prevention, and there's a lot of good resources at that website. And today, due to the number of attendees on this webinar, all participant lines will be muted during the presentation. To submit a question for our presenters, which we hope you will, please use the question feature of your GoToWebinar control panel. Janine Moody of the Iowa Public Health Association will be monitoring all the submitted questions and pose them to our presenters during the question and answer portion of the webinar. Today's webinar will be recorded and posted along with the presenter's slides. A few technical tips for optimizing your webinar experience include utilize a USB headset, use a wired connection versus wireless if possible, and close any application on your computer which requires large bandwidth. I'm Carlene Russell at the Iowa Department on Aging, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today. As the Fall Prevention Grant Project Director, I will provide some brief information about the grant activities as a way to introduce our webinar today. The name of our grant is Building Iowa's Evidence-Based Fall Prevention Network, and the grant was funded by the Administration on Aging and the Administration on Community Living, with partnerships with Iowa Department of Public Health, the Iowa Public Health Association, I4A, the YMCA, the Falls Coalition, of which Larry Readout is a member, and he'll be our first speaker today. But the goals of the grant were to provide evidence-based fall prevention programs, and we've trained quite a few leaders to get that program available statewide, and increase awareness of falls and fall prevention, and thirdly, to increase participation in the fall prevention programs as a way to reduce the number of falls. And these programs can be accessed on Lifelong Links website. You can Google that website and scroll down to fall prevention, and you'll be able to see where the classes are scheduled and where all the leaders are listed. So if you don't see a class listed on the schedule, you could call a leader and ask when they're doing their next class. The evidence-based fall prevention programs that we focused on in the grant include the Matter of Balance, Stepping On, and Tai Chi. And like I mentioned, this is a website where you can find out more about the classes. I would like to encourage you to visit that website for a variety of resources, including some brand new videos that have been developed, and each one of them address a different topic in fall prevention. They're very short and easy to listen to. So, and that'd be available for you to share and maybe post on your organization websites. We want to get a lot of mileage out of these websites, of these videos. So we'll be ending our 2-year fall prevention grant at the end of August, and we're very fortunate that Iowa Department of Public Health received another 2-year grant which will allow us to continue our activities. The emphasis of this new grant will be strengthening our identification of people who are at risk and then referring them to these fall prevention programs. And right now, we've developed radio spots, and they should be airing on radios this week and the next week and maybe even the third week of August. So be on the lookout for those radio spots too. The objectives of our webinar today are to discuss the prevalence of falls and review home fall risk hazards, recognize home modifications to reduce the risk of fall, and identify motivational interviewing techniques to help older adults accept fall prevention strategies. So as we look at the prevalence of falls in Iowa, there's a lot of facts we can look at, but that fall-related deaths are the highest injury-related deaths for Iowans over the age of 65. This now outnumbers the deaths related to motor vehicle accidents. So falls are the leading cause of injury-related hospitalization and emergency room visits. So that translates to about $26,000 per hospitalization. So these are definitely things that we need to address. And I think we all know someone who has fallen, or you may have fallen yourself. Just think about the impact that fall had on you or your family member. Maybe it was a torn rotator cuff resulting in a lot of pain and limited mobility, or not even being able to comb your hair. Or it could be a hip fracture that resulted in loss of mobility, and the examples go on and on and on. So let's hear what can be done to reduce the risk of falling. Our first speaker is Larry Readout, and he is a senior engineer at EMC Insurance Company in the Risk Improvement Department. As an industrial engineer, Larry develops EMC's slip prevention hazard assessment service and numerous slip fall safety documents. He has performed on-site slip fall assessments at hundreds of facilities in both public and private sectors and conducts research on slip fall hazards and mitigation. Larry is known for his engaging presentation style and impactful presentations. He is a certified safety professional and certified walkway auditor, to name a few of his credentials. He is also a Matter of Balance prevention program coach. And I'd also like to introduce our next following speaker will be Becky Lang. And she is the founder of Life Strategies, a motivational interviewing and health coach teaching and speaking business. She is an adjunct assistant professor of family medicine at the Des Moines University College of Osteopathic Medicine. She is an experienced trainer and coder in the field of motivational interviewing and behavior change strategies. She is a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers, is certified in brief action planning, and a certified health and wellness coach. Prior to her tenure at the Des Moines University, she served as a professor in health promotion at Grandview University, specializing in health promotion, health behavior change, and motivational interviewing. So this time I'd like to turn it over to Larry. We'll get his slides up and getting going.
Thank you, Carlene, and welcome to everyone. I'm going to talk a lot about fall hazards, and there's a lot of statistics out there about the number of falls and fatalities and so on, but the point I want to make or have you keep in mind is I haven't seen a fall that cannot be prevented. We're not going to prevent all falls, but we can recognize hazards, take action, and minimize their likelihood. And today we're going to talk about falls in the home. You can see by this graphic that unintentional injury deaths, about half of those occur in the home, the rest in public, workplace, or motor vehicle incidents. And these injuries, the leading cause is falls, of course, in almost every state. Again, Iowa, falls is the #1 reason for unintentional injury deaths, almost 500. Worldwide, it's almost 700, 700,000. But I was curious, too, to see how the U.S. ranks compared to everybody else. And I see we did get the gold medal in 2013, about 30,000. And I was surprised to see Brazil's number. They got the silver medal, ironically, with the Olympics going on. But anyway, it had nothing to do with balance beams or anything like that. But, yeah, I was surprised that Brazil would have almost 12,000 falls, fatalities. So anyway, that was not really relevant, but just that caught my attention. Okay. So I'm going to talk about 3 key areas where falls are likely to happen in the home: bathrooms, kitchens, and of course stairways, whether they be inside stairways or approaches to the home. Those are the 3 key areas. And first off, we'll talk about bathrooms. A lot of things can go wrong in the bathroom. Of course, we got a lot of moisture issues, soapy surfaces, hard surfaces, tile floors, hard surface tub, shower base. We got mats, usually in the shower, next to the showers, that can be out of position, can be buckled and cause a trip. A lot of times there's not very good lighting above the shower. And even getting on and off the toilet can be risky, especially getting off the toilet when you need a lot of traction when you transition from sitting to standing. So we'll talk about some things we can do to help address those. First off, I just wanted to show an actual accident scene where somebody, a lady in the shower, slipped. I could tell that shower didn't have a high traction base to it, and so she broke her pelvis right there. And there was no grab bar in this place, and they didn't really do anything for traction on that shower unit. So what's ironic then, the husband, we got a 2-for-1 here, he slipped and hurt himself on the ceramic tile when he was trying to help his wife get up from her broken pelvis. So anyway, you look at this, you can say, well, no, 2 big things stand out. There's no grab bar, and of course that bath mat, that's just a towel, but they hadn't done anything for traction on the ceramic tile or the shower unit. So, one of the most common modifications we like to see in a bathroom is going to be grab bars. A couple points on that. I always recommend the smaller diameter grab bars. You can get 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches, but older people or people with arthritis have a better chance of getting a good grip on that smaller diameter grab bar. And of course, we're looking for a good finish on the grab bar, a shot blast type finish or peened, so it's not slippery when wet. And the other thing is, there's ADA standards on grab bar placement. A lot of people think we got to follow that in the home, and that's not true. ADA does not apply to the home environment. That's for public spaces. So we need to fit grab bars to the person, to their functionality, not per some public ADA guidelines. And you can see the picture on the right shows some of the ADA measurements for grab bar placement. They're horizontal grab bars. You got specific, dimensions, 33 to 36 inches up off the finished floor or tile surface or tub surface. But the picture on the left shows what might come into play for a person that's got some mobility issues. This is what is comfortable for them using this shower arrangement. So it doesn't really match up exactly with the ADA guidelines. So again, the importance is to don't rely on those standards. It may be a good thing to refer to as a starting point, but we want to measure the placement with the individual performing the task. Grab bar, sometimes people mount grab bars inappropriately. They might throw some screws into a drywall and think that's good enough. We want to hit studs if at all possible. There's specific types of flanges like the one on the left that gives you a better chance of getting multiple screws into a stud, because these things have to support 250 pounds minimum, so you can't just put it anywhere. There's specific fasteners for if you can't hit a stud. The thing in the middle there, that stainless steel secure mount unit, is really good, but it depends that it requires that your drywall be in good condition behind the tub. Okay. And a lot of people have these manufactured or shower surround units. There's a space between the shower wall and the finished wall. It's got to be filled up with a support system that has a rigid backing. So there's only one kind of fastener I know of, and that's what I'm showing here, that you can use in that type of situation to get a proper mount of a grab bar in one of these shower units. And a lot of people complain, and my wife, I had to throw her in that category. She didn't want to put a grab bar up because she thought, well, it looks institutional, these stainless steel things, they don't look inviting, or maybe it's an admission that, okay, we got some disability here, this grab bar now shows that we're disabled, but they don't have to all look a certain way. There's all kinds of options. These are, they're going to cost a little bit more. This example here was $83 compared to maybe $30 for that plain stainless steel unit, but you can get it powder coated in about any color you want. Make it blend in with your color scheme if you want to. And even more pricey, some fancy looking grab bars that you can place in there depending on what your taste is. I go for stainless steel because I don't really care about color schemes, and I'm an engineer, so I'm more into function, not appearance so much. And speaking of that, this is my favorite bath mat. Okay, I splurged and spent $3 for this at IKEA, but I really like it because it's thin, it won't slide, it's got that latex backing. If it ever wears out, I can throw it away. I'm not out too many dollars. But sometimes we see bath mats that are raised up, or you can stub it. You can actually not hit that unexpectedly. It's not stub your toe, but trip over the edge because it's a tall edge. We like to see these things that will lay down flat and hug the floor. And you need these. Whether I've got good traction on my ceramic tile floor in our bathroom, but when I come out with a wet foot, I transition from a tub to the floor. That's not the same as walking. It puts more pressure on my heel as I transition out of the tub. I need more than just good traction. I need some help like this with this mat. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about stairs. And stairs are very risky, and a lot of homes have them. Obviously, I think more than 50% of the homes built since 1970 have stairs in them. But one of the biggest issues to me is the handrail situation. Either there's not a handrail, or it's a handrail that cannot be properly gripped, or it's a handrail that's just on one side. We need those things to really help ourselves navigate those steps, especially going down. I'm not so worried about going up the steps, but they come into play both ways. And sometimes stairways are not well lit. The edges of the steps are hard to see. There's no visual contrast, and of course there can be damage to steps. But the other thing that's important on stairs is we know people are going to do some dumb things. They're going to have their hands full of things as they go down the steps and not use that handrail. A person may have poor grip strength in their hands, and if you watch this person go down the steps kind of lightly holding on to a handrail, do you really think they've got the power in their upper arm and with that grip to prevent themselves from falling if they misstep or their knee gives out? It's the way people walk up and down stairs is important, but we can't really get into that today. But anyway, a lot of things people do that can contribute to injuries on steps. And these handrails, a lot of people put in these decorative handrails, like this is at my house. It's not a compliant handrail by any means. It's too big to get a power grip. It's not round, so it should have a 6 1/4 inch perimeter around that thing. I got 8 1/4 inches, so I can grab it okay, but my wife, she can't really get a good power grip on that thing. I like to see rounded grab bar or handrails for a maximum grip as people go up and down steps. And one of the things, too, to keep in mind why grip is so important is as we age, we lose about 40% of our grip strength over the years. You can see on this graph, both men and women, it's that downhill slide that we all can expect. And it does make a difference on stairs. Speaking of grip, now this is, of course, we like to have handrails on both sides of the steps. And the way you finish a grab bar, handrail, can make a lot of difference on how much grip you have. I found that putting 3 coats of a high gloss urethane finish on these wooden handrails gave me the best grip, the most tactile feel. If I put a satin finish on there or just leave them unfinished, my hand slides almost too easily. So it's just a subtle thing that can improve the grip. And there's an example, again, stair contrast, especially someone with vision impairments, you know, how well can they see those step edges? If you can't see the edge, you're likely to have a misstep and tumble down those things. There's some solutions. A lot of people have carpeted steps, so you figure, well, what can you do with that? You know, I'm not going to paint a stripe on that carpet, although you could, I guess. But this is one solution that I know of where, you know, on the right-hand side, you can see a little aluminum plate. That gets screwed down to the edge of the step, and then you can put any number of colored non-slip strips or grit tape on top of that aluminum plate to hide it. So that picture on the left with that carpeted step, that's an actual what the finished product would look like, and it's, you know, it's really a pretty simple thing to do. You can do it yourself, and if you have wooden steps, you don't need the aluminum plate. You just put those grit strips down, but keep them away from you know, about 1.5 inches away from the step nosing edge. And lighting, you know, one of the problems I had with lighting is, you know, people get up, my wife included, you know, wouldn't always turn on the lights when they go downstairs. Well, we might have a little night light that you think is good enough, but it really isn't. So I put this up, you know, it's $20. So as soon as you approach the top of the steps, this comes on automatically then. And you can have it turn off after 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever you set it to. So it's a good inexpensive fix, and it takes the human element out of a lighting decision. Another thing about steps is I hate to see a step that's more than 7 inches high because I know bad things are going to happen whenever you have that. So this is a step into our house. It was 8 inches. I recognized that as a hazard, and wife didn't like it either. So good, I had to go ahead to spend $10 to get some lumber and make myself a little platform, and she loves it. It's great. Now I've got that 8-inch step split into a 5 and a 3-inch. So that's been a real boost for us, and it's so simple to do. But most houses do have, a lot of houses I go into, they got at least one step, whether it's outside or right in their garage like this. There's a step that's going to be more than 7 inches, and I like to see some way to change that. So this was a simple way to do that. And of course, the human factor, my wife she thinks she can carry laundry down the steps in one hand, and that's exercise going up and down the stairs. I said, well, to me, that's a hazard. That's not exercise. We'll go to the gym, forget taking stuff up and down the steps. So I have a 69-cent IKEA bag. I'm not saying I'm frugal, but it's just, hey, it makes sense. It holds just as much as that plastic clothes basket. Plus, the benefit is it can be held in one hand, or better yet, I like to throw it down the steps. You don't even have to carry it, and it doesn't spill out. It's great. Outdoor steps. This is, you know, common in where I live. They put a 2x6 on the side of the house and pretend that's a handrail. You know, it really isn't. In fact, my wife used that one there to plant some flowers between the siding and that little 2x6 that you can see. So it wasn't really a handrail, but that was the so-called intent. But again, you cannot grip that with a power grip. So I added, you know, very cheap. I probably spent $10 on this thing too to put up a handrail. And it's painted. I painted it with some spray paint, but then I noticed you still don't get a good grip with that, especially if it's wet or even in the wintertime. So that can of stuff I have there, it's kind of like an instant grip. I sprayed that on that handrail, so I got a nice tactile, rough finish that I can grab onto. It makes a huge difference on an outdoor. You don't need that necessarily indoors, but for outdoor handrails, that's a great product to use. About $20 for that can. And you can see at the bottom of the steps, I did also add, I like to put on, again, there's no contrast with those concrete steps. You can't see the edge. So I put that high traction grit step cover down there at the bottom, at least at the bottom step. They're about $50 for that, so I didn't do every step. I did the most important one, and it's a great product, and I'm thinking about doing the other ones. I might do different color for each step. I'll be creative. And I'd like to see a mat that is on the outside of the house that's going to clean the shoes, get the contaminants off, absorb water. This is a great mat that I put out in front of my front door that's got slats, that got really stiff bristles that can clean the feet before you come in. And they're about that's about $100 for that. Just show you what can go wrong, talking about going outside on your walkway. This is kind of a crappy setup of steps where the person involved was going out to the garbage can. Okay, it was icy, it was dark, so you can't see that little step, which is basically a rotted railroad tie. So you got a lot of things that can go wrong there, ice and everything else. So, you ask, how could that injury that you see on the right be a result of a fall? I was confused by that too, but what it was is there's apparently a little nail sticking out of the lattice over there by the deck that sliced the hand open, and that could have easily been fatal because it turns out that was within a half inch of an artery, and so really some bad things can happen. So again, one of the reasons we do these webinars is to try to make people more sensitive to the risk and the consequences of some of these slip and fall hazards. That, but when I look at that picture on the left, yeah, I would have made some changes if I went in there and did an assessment, but not everybody would look like that. They think, well, it's okay, I can walk around this. I've never fallen before, but the time you do, then you'll wish you had. Okay. Just to get about 3 minutes, I'm going to wrap up on the kitchen here, but some of the things I see in kitchens are rugs that are out of position or throw rugs being used, flooring that is hard surface flooring that's slippery, and people falling off step stools or chairs trying to reach things that are stored up high. My question, I like to question the need for rugs. In my opinion, you never need a rug. They should never have. There's no place for those anywhere. My wife had that one down there for a while, the one on the left. I guess the color scheme was good. She liked that, but, I threw it out because it wasn't, we're not going to have them. We're going to have a slip-resistant mat or nothing. So if you have a mat that slides around, put the grip tape on the back of it. Tile is a big issue in kitchens. This is a tile I bought for my house. Okay, there's standards on coefficient of friction, how much traction is there. That had good traction. Wet coefficient of friction was 0.64. Okay, so you think you're done. But then a couple years later, I checked it, and it was down to less than half the traction because I almost slipped when I came in with wet shoes. And so let's keep going here. So what I did is tried everything. The little tub on the left is everything I tried that didn't work to increase that traction. The little bottle on the right, or you can see these products here, we just put it on. It's an etch that'll bring the silica out of the tile up to the surface to give you, it doesn't really change the appearance, but it gives you a tremendous amount of traction. So, and then wood floors. Last weekend I was down in Texas visiting my son, and his house has all these laminate floors in it. And I happened to have my slip meter with me, so I noticed walking around with socks, I was sliding all over the place. So I tried to simulate the traction with rubber shoes was good. If you have socks on, there's zero traction. And that little product on the left is what I experimented with. I knew that was something that would increase traction. So let's go to the final slide here. And so, I treated that floor with that refinisher. And, if you have rubber outsole shoes, it does increase the traction somewhat, but those were safe. You're safe walking around that laminate floor with shoes on no matter what. But if you have socks on, you can see the before and the after. It was horrible without any treatment. But we added a nice high gloss finish that added tremendous increase in traction. So I feel that is actually fairly safe to walk around barefoot. Okay, step stools, and we'll wrap up on this. Always recommend a type 1 step stool. I don't care if you weigh less than 200 pounds. That 250-pound rating means it's a rigid, well-constructed step stool that's not going to flex as you use it. This one has large non-slip feet on it, has large platform steps, and the most important thing, it has that top rail up there that you can hang on to for balance assistance. So that's mine. It was like $40. If you wait for Black Friday, they might be even cheaper coming up. So highly recommended. That's a Gorilla brand, I think. Do I still have a minute? Okay, lighting. Yeah, last thing. Well, okay, step stools are great, but if you can minimize having to use those, you're much better off. Put in LED light bulbs. They're going to last 10 years or more. Then you don't need to come up and find that step stool and climb up and change them. Plus, we like to increase lighting as we age in our homes, and I can use a 100-watt bulb and a 60-watt fixture with no problem because it only is using 14.5 watts, so it's not going to burn up my light fixture. So, and then, of course, motion-activated lights. I got those all over in the house, so it looks crazy at night when we walk around. I don't think I can really cover too much more on home modification right now. Can we come back to this if we have time? Or
and your slides, the slides are already posted in the GoToWebinar handout section for all of our participants online today, and they'll be available on the website.
Maybe I should just explain my one comment on this slide. Home modification is a big deal because there's a lot of old houses that weren't made for or designed for accessibility. They're designed for what I call Peter Pan, somebody that never gets older. But most people tend to get older, and so we need to try to address that issue because homes are not, even my home was 10, 12 years old. It's not built for accessibility, so there's a lot of issues that need to be improved in homes to make them safer for not just elderly or people with disabled, but for anyone.
All right. Thank you, Larry, very much. I already have plans for things I'm going to add to my house already. So, no, this is great. So, I'm Becky Lang. I'm really honored to be here and working with all of you on changing the conversation through motivational interviewing, and absolutely some great ideas about how to make some changes. And what we really want to talk about, too, is how to engage individuals, whether the older adults or the caregivers, and making those changes, and how do we get them to want to and use them as well. So I too want to thank the individuals, Iowa Falls Prevention Coalition, Iowa Department on Aging, and the partners for allowing us to do this today. So for the learning objectives, just kind of a quick review, but using motivational interviewing techniques, or as we call MI, to move older adults and or their caregivers to want to make changes to reduce the fall risk in their home. So again, engaging them in that conversation. So lots of times we have a lot of ideas on things that we want to talk about, and ideas, great ideas that Larry has, and things that we want to share with them, but how do we get to what's important to them and find out what they are ready for. So we're going to talk briefly what is motivational interviewing, and the two parts really that are key is the being part of MI. So when we're having that conversation with someone on behavior change is, what presence do we have? How do we bring up this conversation for individuals to be accepting and engaging? And then there's how do we do that? That's the doing. That's the open-end questions. That's the reflections. That's the summary. That's finding out what that older adult, that older individual wants. And then the other key thing is when we have all this information that's so important, how do we get them to find out what they're interested in? And one thing is asking permission before we give information. Then application, and then I really want you to be thinking about, as you leave this webinar today, how will you change the conversation that you're having with individuals. So behavior change, motivational interviewing is not anything really new. We've been talking about behavior change and studying this area for 30, 40 years. We've learned a lot about why and how you and I make changes and why sometimes we don't make changes. So motivational interviewing, we've been on this journey, and there's some key things that we've learned along the way that I'm excited to share with you or reinforce what you already know. So there's one thing that really is a challenge for us, and it's really part of who we are because we want and we care about other people, is that innate writing reflex that we have. And that is where we have the desire to fix things, to give ideas, to problem solve, tell people what would really be good for them to do, and we can be really right about that. The deal is that when we're on the other side of that conversation, it's just kind of innately that we kind of say, whoa, I don't know, you're kind of pushing me a little too fast, too hard. And so we want to minimize that part of giving all the answers to somebody. And we want them to come up with the answers. And so there's some key things that we can evoke from individuals and have them come up with ideas rather than us giving them. So we want to minimize that. So what we all have that, and I'm sure we can think of times when we've been, we know we're telling someone something and it's just going right over their head and they're not listening. So how can we minimize that? Well, there's some things we can do, and one, of course, would be asking open-ended questions. So along with that, I think one thing is to realize when we're talking about behavior change is that information itself does not change behavior. unless someone is really wanting that. Now, and so we have information for people. The question I would say is, how do we know what they want? Well, we want to ask them. So I've got some ideas for you, Helen. Example, we could say, we could talk about this, we could talk about these grass bars, we could talk about stairway, we could talk about lighting, we could talk about your rugs. Which is the most important for you right now? What's something that you're ready to talk about? So we wanted to ask and turn it around and start where people are at, on what they want and what they know. So we really are changing a conversation, and Institute for Healthcare Improvement has really come up with this initiative that has really been working well, in the sense of, instead of saying what's the matter with you or what's wrong, what's not working, we say what matters to you. You know, why would you want to move that rug? What would be important for you to make sure that you don't slip or fall? Why is that important to you? So we want to get at people's why, and then that can help us get at, okay, once we know their why, then we can get at to their how to do it. So communication styles used in healthcare especially, or working with people on behavior change, is there's the three. There's the follow, which is really where we're listening. And you can think of an example of maybe someone's gone through a really rough time, or they're trying to make a decision on if they need surgery or not, or maybe they've gone through divorce or lost a child. And really, and when we're working with that person, we really are listening. We're not giving much information. They just want to be heard. Okay. Then there's the bottom one, the direct, and that's where, you know, I've fallen, I've broken my arm, or I've fallen, broken my hip. I need someone who's going to direct and say, okay, we need to fix this. Okay. There's no real decision there. And another example would be if there's a tornado right now. It's not like, which door do you want to go through? Do you want to go through this door? Or do you want to go through this door? No, we're going through this door. So there's times when we're directing people. And so when we're having conversations with people, knowing that really these three styles are used. And when we're talking about behavior change, when that individual has engagement or they have a part of that decision, is the guiding. And that's where we want to guide and support, give options, ask permission before we give information, and really find out what their why is and what they would like to do. So the guiding is what we want. So what is motivational interviewing? Those of you that have heard of this know that it's really a style of being with people. It's a partnership. It's together we're going to work on this. And when we're working with older adults or caregivers, we really say there's two experts in the room. One is the expert of that we have that expertise of knowing what will help them prevent falls. We have lots of great knowledge, great programs. We know what would be beneficial for them. The older individual is the other partner because they're the expert on them. And they have a sense of what they're ready for, what's important for them, what they can do, what they will really use. So we think of it as a partnership of working together to come up with what would be the best next step. Another textbook definition of motivational interviewing is that it's a collaborative conversation style for strengthening a person's, that other person's, own motivation commitment to change. We really cannot motivate others. We can evoke from them their own why. And that's really our role in a conversation of engagement, is to find out their why by asking them what's important to them, what are they ready for, why would that be important. So we're trying to pull from that person information, and once they talk about that, then it's going to strengthen their own realization that this is important to me and this is why it is. And having them, giving the opportunity to say it out loud is powerful. So I just want to share a little bit about Dr. Bill Miller, just to give you a little bit of idea about motivational interviewing. He's, of course, on the right side. Motivational interviewing began with substance abuse, mostly with alcoholism. Dr. Miller has a heart of working with people, Native American population in New Mexico back in the early 80s, and at that time there's a lot of shooting on people and pointing fingers and making people feel guilty, and behavior change just was not happening. And he said there's got to be a different approach. He used the Carl Rogers kind of approach, of working together with someone and just had some amazing changes and was able to document that, study that. Got in with Dr. Rolnick, who's from South Africa, and began to do some research. And Terry Moyers in the middle there is now professor at New Mexico, is doing a lot of research. If you need to pull up some research on motivational interviewing, I have a reference page, but also Dr. Moyers has a lot of research on showing how the outcomes, better outcomes of people accepting and having better healthcare outcomes, better, it's in criminal justice, it's in substance abuse, it's in healthcare, it's in education. So I just wanted you to be able to visualize Dr. Miller and know that something's not just something we've talked about in 5 years. This has got 30 years and thousands of studies to show. So how does it work? Well, motivational interviewing is a collaborative, goal-oriented method of communication with a particular attention to the language of change coming from that individual. It's designed to strengthen that person's own motivation for and movement towards a specific goal or next step or action of what they're going to do by eliciting or pulling and exploring the person's own arguments for change. So again, we're looking at change, what they might want to take up. So making decisions about change is challenging. You know, whether do I want this in my house? Do I want to really remove that rug? It's my favorite rug. I don't really want to remove it. So how can we have that conversation? Well, first of all, understanding that it's very normal and natural to be ambivalent about any kind of change. And motivational interviewing helps to resolve that by pulling from that person's own reasons for their change, again, their why, and it engages them in their own health care. So we're not just telling. So there's the being, again, understanding the role that older adult plays in their choice of what they're going to do, and also the skills that you all are doing when you're having that conversation with those individuals. That's the ORs. Mm-hmm. And so the first part of it here is the listen, is thinking, it helps me a lot if I use listen with curiosity. So instead of thinking, I'm going to give you all my ideas, I want to listen with what might you be interested in knowing about or doing. So listening with curiosity is something that I think is really helpful. Zig Ziglar, a little quote here, the biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand, we listen to reply. So one of the benefits of motivational interviewing is it really teaches us how to pause and reflect instead of asking question after question after question, because we want to try to understand rather than, and we want to reflect. That reflecting helps show that. If we just reply, then we're not pulling from them as much. Like this quote from Carl Rogers, who's kind of fundamental principles of MI, but when a person realized he has been deeply heard, his eyes moisten. I think in some real sense he is weeping for joy, as though he were saying, thank God somebody heard me. Someone knows what it's like to be me. And that's what motivational interviewing does, has a way of really honoring where people are at, maybe what they're scared about, maybe what they're worried about, or maybe what they're ready to move forward on, and that's great. I love this. The word listen contains the same letters as the word silent. And I had to kind of, I said, really? I had to kind of X those all out. So part of that communication style, when we're working with people on change, is sometimes we want to really be quiet and give that other person an opportunity to talk. And so being, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that sometimes helps us think about that. The 4 processes of MI. So when we're having a conversation with someone about change, be thinking of these 4. The first part is obviously we want to engage with that person, and having that conversation of who we are, what's the goal, what's the reason why we're having this discussion. Helen, it's really important that you stay healthy in your home, or we want you to be safe in your home, and so I'm here to assist you in any way I can to be as healthy and as safe as you can in your home. So I want to know what's important to you. So having that engaging conversation. Then there's focusing, finding out what they want to talk about, what's one thing that maybe would help them be safe at home, evoking from them their why, and then the planning. typically we have a tendency to go from engaging to planning, and we kind of miss the other two, and so we really want to make sure we take these step by step. So as I talked about, it's that connection, and how do we do that? It's open-ended questions, it's reflections, and it's listening. So open-ended questions, the three best are what, tell me, and describe. What is a great question, open-ended question, not can you tell me, or did you, do you, are you, is there. No. What, tell me, describe are great open-ended questions. So we talk about the ORs. This is the acronym that will help us in actually pulling from individuals what their why is. So you can think of the ORs. Open-ended questions, more than closed. Again, closed is the do you, are you, is there. And fact-finding. We have a tendency to do a lot of fact-finding. So tell me about how long you've lived in your house. Tell me how many rugs you have. Tell me, so we're doing numbers. And that can be important. It isn't necessarily helpful for them taking a next step and finding out what they're ready for. The A stands for affirm. We want to affirm what that person already knows. So let's say they've removed one, or they know that the rugs in there are safe. And so that they know that, we want to say, so Helen, you know a lot about how to stay safe in your home. So we want to affirm them, not praise, not say, I'm so proud of you, because then it's more of a parent relationship. We want to affirm their efforts, their knowledge, and that is so powerful and helps people feel self-efficacy, have the belief they can do it. Next is reflect what they say. So Helen, so this is what I hear you say. This is what I think that you mean, to make sure that we understand it right. And then kind of summarize, especially at the end. So Helen, this is what we talked about today, and this is what you said you wanted to do next. Did I get that right? So we want to summarize throughout the conversation. Again, the best are what, describe, and tell me. So a little example here. Close. Do you think you can move this rug? Yes, no. Okay. Are you safe in your bathroom and tub? Oh, yeah. Do you have any concerns? And again, concerns, it's negative. We'd like to say, what's working well for you? So MI is strength-based. What's going well? What are you doing in your home that keeps you safe? Instead of saying, do you have any concerns? It's okay to ask that, but not the first question. Okay. Here's an example here. Do you think you could move this rug? We change it. What do you think you could do to make your home more safe and prevent falls? Would be a way that we could open up that question. 2, are you safe in your bathroom and tub? Oh, as you think about staying safe in your bathroom, what is one thing that would help you? Okay, those are all examples of what you could say. So the second part is focusing. Agree on an agenda. So you could say, Helen, so we could talk about this. We could talk about changing out the rugs you have. We could talk about making your floor not as slippery, all the different things that Larry gave great examples of. Or is there something else that's on your mind that you want to make sure we address today? So we want to give them options and then decide on what we're going to talk about, setting the agenda. And then asking permission is really helpful for engagement. So before we give them ideas, we can say, if you're interested, Helen, I have some ideas you might want to consider. May I share them with you? It just helps with them feel like they have a sense of control. So another way to say this is we call it explore, offer, explore. So we can say, find out what the individual knows or wants to know, or is interested in knowing. So we could say something like, what do you already know about staying safe in your home? And if they have anything, then we affirm them. I have some real thoughts. I have some thoughts I can share. Can I share them with you? Now, they may say no, but probably going to say yes, or say okay. Then we provide brief information. What we've learned is what we know that will help, and again, give them a few options, and then come back around. It's like a sandwich. Then at the end, say, find out how that information could be helpful to them. So you could say, so Helen, after you hear these different examples or ideas, what are your thoughts? And then see if she says what she wants. So the next one is evoking and really trying to get at what they want. That's I need, I could, desirability, reasons. Those would be the change talk. And when we hear it, we want to reflect. We want to reflect. Change talk is powerful. That's the whole piece that we're wanting that person to say, I think I could move this rug, or I think I want to do this, or I could do this. That's change talk. So we want to reflect and stay right there because it's powerful, just like a waterfall. So examples. I see you're interested in learning how to stay safe in your home. Tell me about that. Tell me what you know about preventing falls at home. What is the best thing you could do to prevent falls? What is one thing you want to make sure we talk about today? Or if you could make one change, what would it be? As you leave today, Helen, what's one thing you'll begin to do? So those are all examples of what's going to elicit or bring that change talk, finding their why. So now Larry and I have a little real play we're going to do right here. So I'm going to be the practitioner, and Larry's going to be the older adult. So this would be one example, and we'll talk a little bit after we're done. So Larry, I understand you recently fell at home. I'm here to follow up. Did you remove those rugs?
Yeah, I did, except for one that I have by my sink that I really like.
Okay, well, you know, it would be better for you if you removed that rug.
Well, I suppose, but I really like it. Helps keep my feet warm.
Okay, I understand, but, you know, it really would be better if you removed it, too. You know, you don't want to fall again.
No?
Yeah, well, I can help you. I will just take it out while I'm here, and it'll be all done. You won't have to worry about it at all. Is that okay?
Oh, I suppose.
Okay, so what's going on here, as you can see, I have some words here, but sustained talk is really, we don't use the word resistant anymore. We just use it, that Larry was like, he's not ready to make, he's reluctant. And so I just kind of moved on. I didn't really even listen to him. So let's look at a different way that would be even more engaging. So Larry, hey, I understand you recently fell at home. I'm here to follow up. You know, what changes, if any, were you able to make?
Well, I removed all those rugs except for that one by my sink.
Okay, wow, you've really been working hard. So you still have one by the sink. Well, tell me why you removed all the other rugs.
Well, I don't want to fall again, and, you know, my daughter is concerned.
Okay, well, yeah, both you and your daughter want to make sure you're safe at home.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about in regards to the rug by your sink?
Well, I'm not sure about that one.
Okay, yeah, you like your rug there. And you also want to make sure you're as safe as possible.
Right, and my daughter's concerned about me.
Okay, what do you think your options are? You know, she would feel better if all the rugs were gone.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so let's figure out some options we can work on together. Okay?
All right.
So here you can see a little bit of differences. Right away I said, what changes, if any, were you able to make? Okay, opening a question, and he said removed one rug. Okay, or all but one rug. Well, I want to affirm that. I want to affirm that he did something, okay, so his intention. And then I want to get at why he chose to remove all those other rugs. And then he said, I do not want to fall. That's change talk, okay? And so then I reflected that change talk. And then I asked, what are you thinking about the rug by your sink? Again, open question to see what he's going to say. Okay. The last one here, so Larry, I understand you recently fell at home. Would it be okay if we talked a little bit about staying safe in your home?
Well, I suppose, but I don't want to move any rugs.
Yeah, you really like those rugs in your home.
Oh, yeah, they help keep my feet warm.
Yeah, and they're comforting, and they are comforting to you. Well, tell me, what have you heard about rugs and falling?
Well, nothing really.
Okay, well, I've got some information. Would it be okay if I shared with you what we know? There's a lot of things you could put in your house or things that we could do, just, you know, even one thing that would make a big difference. Is it okay if I share some of those with you?
Sure, I suppose so.
Okay, so that would be the elicit, provide, elicit, where we're trying to give them some ideas and have them come up with one. So kind of as we finish up here today, some of the key takeaways that I would say when working with people is find out what that individual already knows about staying safe or preventing falls or even staying strong, you know, and with all these different programs, Tai Chi or balancing, those things. Find out what they know and affirm. Affirm that's going to help them with self-efficacy, belief they can do it. Then think about open-ended questions rather than closed. What, tell me, describe. Ask permission before we give information of ideas that we have. It just helps the partnership. It helps the engagement. Give options. not just one of saying you need to do this, but give them a variety of options and see what they're ready for, what is important for them. Affirm what they know or have done or their intention, and have the individual repeat what they've learned or will do before they leave so that they're saying it out loud. That's all change talk. So another quote by Carl Rogers as we end here, especially as we're thinking how we regard working with people, whatever age they are, but people are just as wonderful as sunsets if you let them be. When I look at a sunset, I don't find myself saying, soften the orange a bit on the right-hand corner. I don't try to control a sunset. I watch with awe as it unfolds. So as we're working with people, again, honoring where they're at, honoring that they've got some information, and I'm curious to learn about what they know, what they want, their why, rather than thinking I'm going to give them all this information, but we're going to partner together. So changing from what's the matter with you to what matters to you, what's your why. So as we kind of end today, these are what we're going to talk about as far as our goals, the definition, the being part of it, the listening, the doing, and then the specific things of the ORs. So my question to you is, how will you change the conversation? What's one thing that you'll do differently, and or maybe you're already doing it, that you want to make sure you continue to do? And I'll have you just kind of ponder that for a few seconds. So to change the conversation, I will continue to, I'll add more of this, I'll do less of this, I'll focus on this. So I'll have you think of what's one thing you'll do, and encourage you to just even jot it down, write it down. There's power in that, or say it out loud. References, and I think as well as my emails on there, I have a website that I do blogs on patient-centered, motivational interviewing, application, how we talk with individuals, communication styles. So feel free to go to that if you're interested in reading some blogs about that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We've had some wonderful speakers. And Janine, do we have any questions that have come in?
Not yet, but now would be the time.
Yeah, this would be a great time to type in a question for our speakers.
They could also type in what they're going to do.
Yeah, Becky said you can type in your goals that you've identified for yourself. And we'll be able to see them on the screen here.
So to remind everybody, over in your control panel on the GoToWebinar feature, there's a question box, and you can just type in any questions, and you can either send those privately to me as the moderator, or you can send to all.
As we're waiting for questions, I'd again like to encourage all of you to visit the Lifelong Links website for the fall prevention resources, and check out under resources the fall prevention videos. They're really a great wealth of information that you could use via YouTube. You could share them and really help get the message out on how to prevent falls. One of the videos is featuring Larry Readout, and he's telling a lot of the things that you heard today too, but it'd be easy to share with one of your aging parents or a relative that you're concerned about, and so that they can learn more about preventing falls.
Okay, thanks. We've got some questions popping in. The first one from Lynette, she asked, did you mention where we could get copies of the information Larry Readout shared? So yes, right now, as you're live in the webinar, if you look in that control panel, there is a handout box, and you can right now from there download PDFs of all three presenters' slides. Alternatively, this afternoon, you'll be able to find them on the IPHA website. which is Carlene shared, is Iowa Public Health Association. So the URL is iowapha.org. And then just go to our hot public health topics and select the drop-down for falls prevention. And all the slides from today and from the previous 3 webinars will be there. Another question from Barb at Lynn County. Hi, Barb. Says, do you have resources to refer folks for home hazards mitigation so it could be made more safe?
I think the best place to start is with the area agencies on aging, and they've got a lot of contacts. There's Centers for Independent Living, this organization Rebuilding Together, I believe it is. I know they get involved in home assessments. So there's a lot of resources out there to request a home assessment. And of course, hopefully with some of the things we talked about today, you can maybe even do a little bit of your own assessments as you go out there and help people.
Yeah.
I would add, under the resources on the Iowa Lifelong Links, there's some materials that you can do to help do it. It's a checklist to evaluate your home safety too. And also under the CDC Steady Toolkit, you'll see some checklists on there too.
We have a thank you note that says, thank you, great tangible ways to make a home more safe and reminders of MI techniques. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. So that seems to be all the questions we have live right now. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap up then.
Yeah. So we want to thank you very much for joining us today, and these invite you to watch recordings of this and the other webinars and to visit our resources on Lifelong Links. Thank you very much.